This ugly orphan girl was helping her heartbroken best friend, who was completely drunk, get home when she suddenly tripped and fell. But instead of helping, her friend bolted like a corny horse. Panicked, she ran after him. When she finally caught up, she found her friend vomiting all over a sussy car. The moment her eyes landed on the car Jaguar's logo, she froze in poverty. Slowly, she turned her gaze to a low-testosterone, beardless, handsome man standing beside it, then quickly bent down to apologize. She promised to compensate him in some sussy way, but the man, after looking at her big guyot, simply said it was fine. It wasn't a big deal. She hadn't expected to meet such a kind and rich person. Relieved, she was about to leave with her friend when, out of nowhere, her friend shoved her away. In that instant, the man instinctively reached out and pulled her back. But in the process, her hand accidentally pressed against his chest. The man suddenly coughed up a sussy red pearl, one that immediately fell into her mouth. The taste of vomit made her dizzy, and before she could react, everything went black. When she woke up, something felt off. The man sat across from her, resting his chin on his hand, staring at her thirstily. Feeling uncomfortable under his gaze, she awkwardly asked, "Why am I here? And how the fuck my makeup is still perfect?" He calmly replied, "You wouldn't wake up, so I brought you here. I need to retrieve something. You swallowed the pearl I've been cultivating for over 900 years. She blinked. Pearl? You mean like an antique? The man gave a small, almost majestic smile. Number, I'm a fox. Silence. She stared at him, mentally evaluating whether he had escaped from a psych ward. Very slowly, she began inching away like a sim character whose path had been blocked. Her hand instinctively reached for her phone, because if this man was about to shift into some furry nightmare, she was gonna live stream it for content. But before she could even open the app, poof, a nine-tailed fox appeared right in front of her. Her soul left her body. She barely had time to scream before she passed out like a Windows XP shutdown. The next time she woke up, the same sussy, handsome face was staring at her like she was a lab experiment. Fear kicked in, but before she could have a full-blown breakdown, the fox said gently, "I'll get you some tea." Oh, okay, a fox with manners. Maybe this was just an elaborate escape room. As he prepared the tea like a fancy barista, he casually asked, "Do you want sugar?" But when he turned around, she was gone. She had pulled the Usain Bolt of all escapes, sprinting like rent was due. She thought she was safe, until she ran into her chubby friend, who teasingly patted her shoulder. The moment he touched her, she collapsed like a deflated balloon. Her friend freaked out. "Bro, I barely touched you. Are you allergic to me?" He tried to help her up, but zap! Her whole body twitched like she had just licked a power socket. Meanwhile, across the city, the fox casually sipped his tea and went, "Ah, she found out." Frustrated, she stormed back to the fox. "This is because of that sussy pearl, isn't it?" The fox nodded like a customer service agent about to drop bad news. "The pearl isn't the issue, but you can't touch men born in the year of the tiger." She blinked. "Excuse me? Tigers and foxes are natural enemies," he explained, like this was common knowledge. "If you touch a man born in the year of the tiger, it will conflict with the jade fox inside you." She groaned. "So what, do I just pop painkillers when this happens?" The fox extended his hand. "No need. Just touch me. The pain will disappear." That sounded like the biggest scam she had ever heard. But skeptical and desperate, she hesitantly placed her hand on his. Boom! Instantly, the pain vanished. But wait, plot twist. The red pearl inside her, which had been chilling unchanged for 900 years, suddenly turned blue. The fox's eyes widened. "Oh," she freaked out. "What do you mean, oh? Get it out of me. Maybe a doctor can—" The fox shook his head. "It's not in your stomach anymore." She gulped. "Then, where is it?" "It's already in your pelvis." She was silent for a full 10 seconds. Then, very calmly, she said, "I'm gonna throw up." Later that night, she dragged her suitcase to a store and slammed it down like a final boss. "Sir, do you sell electric batons?" The shop owner's eyes gleamed. "Oh, I got the good stuff." He demonstrated one. And damn, this thing could take down a whole rhino. She was impressed. Until she saw the price. 1,201. She froze. Noticing her hesitation, the shop owner pulled out a small spray bottle. "This is just as effective, and it's only 71. Without a second thought, she snatched it up like a bargain shopper on Black Friday. "This will do." But just as she was about to leave, the TV in the store flashed a breaking news report. Recent missing person cases. Just looking at it made her feel like she was about to get caught in a crime thriller. The shopkeeper kept insisting that these people likely wanted to take her organs. "Don't worry, sweetheart, it's just a minor side effect of pepper spray," he said with a grin. grin. As soon as the girl heard that, she stammered and said she'd prefer to take the electric baton instead, because it's totally normal to plan for fox-related emergencies. The truth was, she had bought these items not to deal with people, but to handle foxes that were over 900 years old. She wasn't ready for the ancient fox gang waiting for her. Late at night, she reluctantly dragged her luggage into the fox's house. While the fox was upstairs, watching her, he wondered why the red jade had changed color after 900 years. Did I spill spaghetti on it? I swear this wasn't the plan, he thought. The girl slowly brought her luggage into the yard. Staring into the eyes of the nine-tailed fox inside the house made her feel terrified, like she was being judged by a Yelp reviewer. She silently cursed his 18 generations of ancestors. But then, the fox suddenly appeared in front of her and helped carry her luggage like it was some medieval knight cosplay. The girl reassured herself and walked in. Once inside, the fox helped her set up the room, probably wishing there was a guide for how to fold bedsheets from a 1,000-year-old fox perspective. Just as she was about to retreat to her room, the fox called her back. After all, this was their first meeting, and he still didn't know her name. Can't make sure you're not secretly a vampire if I don't know your identity, he thought. She introduced herself. My name is Lee Dam. He nodded like he was writing it down in his ancient fox notebook. Afterward, she quickly tried to go back to her room, but in her haste, she dropped the pepper spray. Lee Dam quickly explained it was a gift for him. Like a fox-themed gift basket, she joked. I hope you like it, she said. The fox pretended to try it. It's a good gift, he commented. A bit strong for my taste, but hey, I'm ancient. I'm into weird stuff. Lee Dam lay on the bed, now unarmed and feeling anxious. She secretly thought, there's no way I'm sleeping tonight. But surprisingly, she slept soundly until morning, like a brick with blankets. To her astonishment, the fox had stocked the refrigerator with food for her. Did he just raid a supermarket? Who even has a fridge at this point? To make it up to her, he even offered to cover all her study expenses. Looks like the fox is giving out scholarships now, she thought. When she received the reward, she was overjoyed and completely forgot about her current situation, living with a man who had been alive for over 900 years. Then, in the blink of an eye, he transformed into an old man and said, I have to use this identity to go on a business trip to France for 2 days. If you feel uncomfortable, just call me. Lee Dam immediately waved her hand. I'm perfectly fine, she assured him. Go ahead, get those croissants. That evening, her friends called her out. However, she realized she was no longer the same. If she crossed paths with someone born in the year of the tiger, things could get dangerous. Time to take the exit strategy. Suddenly, her phone slipped from her hand and was picked up by someone else. The man who picked it up had an arrogant attitude. Lee Dam immediately became serious. She snatched the phone back and tried to leave, but in the next moment, the man embraced her like it was a soap opera scene. A sharp pain suddenly pierced her stomach. It was obvious. This man was born in the year of the tiger, but she was in so much pain she couldn't even speak. The man, misunderstanding her reaction, thought she would go along with him. He quickly dragged her away. As they entered an alley, Lee Dam's face grew paler by the second. There's a hotel nearby, the man said reassuringly. Just wait a little longer and I'll help you wake up. But she had no strength left. She prayed for someone to save her. Cue Fox superhero music. Just when Lee Dam felt utterly helpless, he appeared. The fox materialized in front of her like a legendary warrior. He pulled her into his arms and tried to take her away, but the man blocked his way. Clearly, the man had no idea who he was up against. With a single effortless slap, the fox sent him flying 10 meters. It was like watching a slow-motion superhero scene. After this incident, the distance between Lee Dam and the fox seemed to shorten slightly. She understood that he had done it to protect the fox gem inside her. Still, she was curious. If the fox gem is inside me, can it be removed? She asked. The fox replied, humans can't bear the fox jade for long. At most, only a year. Lee Dam hesitated. And what happens if I can't get it out? The fox stopped walking, and after a moment of silence, said, you'll die. Now that she knew exactly how much time she had left, Lee Dam decided to indulge in all the delicious food she had never tasted before. Meanwhile, back at home, the fox checked the time. It was 11 p.m., and he began to worry about Lee Dam. What he didn't know was that at that moment, Lee Dam had eaten and drunk too much. Because she was drunk, she couldn't walk steadily and stumbled. As she tried to stand up, she suddenly saw a red pearl in front of her. She vomited the pearl, and that's when realization hit her. Panicked, she ran home as fast as she could, her face serious, repeating to herself what had just happened. Once home, she held out her hand and declared, I won't die. The fox glanced at her and then asked why she was holding a piece of candy. Lee Dam's expression showed disappointment. Suddenly, the fox noticed something was wrong. She was about to vomit. Based on her actions, could it be that she intended to use the antique vase as a place to throw up? Sure enough, in the next moment, Lee Dam rushed toward the pile of antiques. The fox waved his hand, and the antiques immediately flew up. Lee Dam, still in a rush, attempted to move toward something else but failed. The fox quickly opened the bathroom door for her, which helped calm her down. Looking at the antiques floating around in the fox's house, she couldn't help but sigh. At this point, Lee Dam was feeling lost. She could have resigned herself to her fate, but as soon as she arrived at school, she found a group of older boys standing in front of her. Her mind went into a panic. She quickly walked past them, but just as she breathed a sigh of relief, a crowd rushed toward the cafeteria and bumped into her. Luckily, someone caught her. Lee Dam curiously asked if he was a year above her. "Isn't he born in the year of the tiger?" The senior replied that his birthday was early, so he was born in the year of the cat. Lee Dam immediately said, "Very lucky. Born in the year of the cat." The senior, embarrassed, tried to move on. This situation wasn't easy for Lee Dam. She knew that if her time was short, she couldn't let herself live in fear. But suddenly someone called her name. Lee Dam quickly realized it was the school's hot boy, also her senior, born in the year of the tiger. But he only reminded her that she had dropped her shirt and even helped her pick it up. Lee Dam saw him walk closer, and she was so scared that she couldn't speak. She immediately told him to put the shirt on the ground. Then, Lee Dam carefully bent down to grab it. She feared what he might do to her while she picked it up. Once she had the shirt, she said, "Thank you," and quickly ran away. The male student stood dumbfounded, unable to believe what had just happened. Not only was he rich, but he was also the school's heartthrob. Everywhere he went, girls flocked to him, but this girl avoided him like the plague. This intrigued him, and he began to wonder why she, of all people, was avoiding him, especially since he was, in fact, a fox. Lee Dam then began to negotiate with the fox. If he couldn't remove the fox jade from her for the time being, then he was obligated to keep her safe at all times and protect the fox jade. Plus, he couldn't show her a cold face. It made her constantly feel uneasy. In the end, the two reached an agreement. Lee Dam thought she had made a good deal, but little did she know that the fox's nature was far more cunning. The next day, he visited his 900-year-old fox friend and told her about the human girl. After swallowing his jade, the once red jade turned blue. As soon as his friend heard this, she said it was a good sign. But the fox replied that he couldn't love a young girl. He couldn't let things spiral into a tragedy like they did 600 years ago. Since Lee Dam had swallowed the fox pearl, her entire body had been in a state of constant tension. She soon realized that she had been noticed by the hot boy from school, who was not far away. Lee Dam, not feeling like eating, said goodbye to her friends. As she stood up to leave, the hot boy stopped her. Lee Dam's first reaction was to avoid anyone born in the year of the tiger, so she told him to move out of her way. The hot boy asked Lee Dam again if they could drink a glass of water together. Her best friend saw this and immediately pulled her back. "Why would you want to miss such a good opportunity?" she urged. The senior asked Lee Dam once more if she wanted a drink, but she resolutely refused. Her close friend then asked why Lee Dam was so tense when the senior found out her name. The senior seemed to be trying to close the gap between them, but Lee Dam suddenly avoided him. His expression immediately soured. Seeing this, his close friend quickly stepped in to help him overcome his shyness. The senior attempted to put his hand behind his back, but Lee Dam reflexively avoided him. He felt extremely uncomfortable. Just then, his phone rang, which gave him a moment to compose himself. There's a saying that what you can't have is the best. Now, he was focused on Lee Dam, but things were slipping away unintentionally. After school, he borrowed money from her to buy drinks, came back, grabbed her phone, and entered his number. He told her to call him the next time she wanted a drink. He was so sure that their second meeting would go well, but to his surprise, Lee Dam simply said she wasn't interested. The senior, who had never been rejected before, felt a deep curiosity about Lee Dam. Lee Dam went home, heartbroken and crying. She had been healthy for 18 years, but now she was suffering from a mysterious disease. She didn't even know if she would survive to see the next year. The fox, who was outside her door, couldn't help but recall a question from his friend. He knew how to extract the jade fox, but why hadn't he done it yet? The fox approached Lee Dam and said, "I want to confirm something." Before she could react, he grabbed her hand. As he looked at the red fox and then at Lee Dam's body, he got his answer. He told her she could return. urging her to think of it all as a dream. He held her face tightly, intending to take the fox jade back out of her body. But as soon as he saw the fox jade in her body had changed color, he immediately stopped. A human like Lee Dam was shaking with uncertainty. The fox thought to himself that maybe this girl was the one he had been waiting for over 600 years. This girl, who had lived for 18 years, was now experiencing this for the first time. But the truth was, she wasn't human. She was a fox who had lived for 900 years. No one believed her when she said it, though, because it was her first time and she had no experience. So she turned to her best friend for advice. Her friend shared a story about someone she knew who lived with a person of the opposite sex. One day, this man suddenly kissed her, but just before it became serious, he stopped. They had only known each other for a week. But when the woman tried to leave, he hugged her without a word. Her best friend asked, "So, what kind of trick was that man playing?" She insisted it was an expression of love, unaware that the man in question, the senior, was now deep in thought about Lee Dam. As soon as his fox friend heard the story, he was about to act, but noticed that the fox pearl turned blue only to quickly revert back to red. Why was it not the same as before? The fox asked Lee Dam, "What happened to you?" She explained that her jade fox had changed color because she was now a normal person. This left the fox confused about whether or not he should take Jade back. Her friend analyzed the situation and suggested that maybe this was his last chance. Meanwhile, the senior was still thinking about Lee Dam. He had tried to borrow money from her last time to meet up, but she had told him she wasn't free. His curiosity had now reached its peak, and he asked her what she was busy with. Unexpectedly, Lee Dam replied, "I'm cleaning the toilet." She even asked if he had any tips on how to unclog one. The senior felt more and more intrigued by Lee Dam, finding her unexpectedly interesting. In fact, Lee Dam was actually cleaning the toilet. She didn't want the fox to see her embarrassed face. At that moment, her senior called to help her. "First, close the toilet tightly and flush," he instructed. After seeing the bulge in the middle of the bag, apply more pressure. She could hear the sound of the toilet flushing, which made her excited. She quickly picked up the phone to thank him, even giving him the nickname the Toilet Fairy. The senior thanked her for the nickname and, in return, asked if she could invite him out for a meal. Without hesitation, Lee Dam agreed. He smiled, thinking that it was impossible to chase after girls without a little skill. That night, the fox went out of his way to please Lee Dam. He brought her favorite pizza and even asked if she had enough to eat. If she was still hungry, he'd cook for her himself. Lee Dam was suddenly confused by his gentleness. At that moment, she couldn't help but recall her best friend's words, that the man was definitely showing love. Though Lee Dam immediately dismissed the idea, she couldn't help but ask the fox, "Do you love me?" The fox hesitated, unsure of how to answer. Lee Dam pressed on. "What about what happened last night? What did you mean by that?" The fox explained that at first he had intended to let her go, but he realized that if he did, he'd be left to deal with everything alone, and that thought confused him. Lee Dam understood after hearing this, so she let it pass. However, she made it clear that in the future, he should control himself and avoid ambiguous actions that might cause misunderstandings. The fox shed his shyness, explaining that he just wanted to see if she could take responsibility for herself. Lee Dam secretly thought to herself that people really didn't understand the world of foxes. Meanwhile, the fox had been listening to his friend's advice because the jade fox inside Lee Dam had changed color. His friend encouraged him to date Lee Dam. The fox, who had lived for 900 years, had never expected to be rejected. He felt even more embarrassed by what he had just said. Lee Dam's younger brother had grown suspicious about her moving out to live alone, so he silently observed her. He overheard her calling two analysts, likely professors, as young people now called them that. The fox, still concerned about the jade fox inside Lee Dam, heard her say that the jade fox hadn't changed in recent times. Lee Dam's close friend jokingly suggested that she might be pregnant. The two of them quickly concluded that Lee Dam was indeed pregnant. At this moment, the fox comforted Lee Dam, acknowledging that she had worked hard due to the jade fox. Lee Dam responded that it was fine. After all, it was about to leave her soon. Hearing this, her older sister confirmed that she was pregnant. The fox's anger flared immediately. Lee Dam realized that everything had been exposed. Her younger brother, now furious, confronted the fox. "Do you love my sister?" he demanded. The fox replied, "No." "Then at least get married?" the younger brother asked. "No," the fox answered again. The younger brother, who had never encountered such a man, was furious. He grabbed a stick and charged toward the fox. But in the blink of an eye, the fox simply glanced at him and his friend, freezing them midair. Lee Dam was terrified, but the fox assured her that he would take them home safely and erase their memories. Before Lee Dam could react, the two of them vanished. Shaken, Lee Dam rushed home, only to see her younger brother and a group of people at the house playing. Her younger brother asked her what she was doing there, noticing that his bag had disappeared. He seemed surprised to see her. It turned out that her brother had returned home. Lee Dam's younger brother was completely unaware of the events that had just unfolded. So, Lee Dam quickly made an excuse, saying she was going to grab her things, and left without expecting her brother to urge her to hurry up once she had them. As she stepped out of the house, she couldn't help but admire the power of the fox, unaware that at that very moment, the fox was being mocked by his friend. Living for 900 years and still can't handle a girl? His friend teased. As a fellow fox, he wasted no time in showing him a few tricks. In the 21st century, sweet words are no longer enough. We must rely on practical actions. Honestly, the fox thought, doing all of Lee Dam's bidding made him wonder what she was thinking. But when Lee Dam returned, she surprised him by saying she needed to ask him something. The fox thought his moment had finally come. But what happened next caught him off guard. The senior, a persistent stalker, showed up in front of Lee Dam at least 20 times a day and sent her messages asking for dates when he wasn't physically around. Lee Dam had become fully aware of how thick-skinned this senior was, which only made her feel helpless. It made her reflect on how she used to be like that. What she didn't know, however, was that the senior's behavior was part of a bet with his friends. The bet was about whether Lee Dam could do anything to prove the senior was capable. They'd bet 100,000 on it. Unable to stand the senior's persistence, Lee Dam decided to talk to the fox. She explained her situation in a hoarse voice, and the fox quickly realized her goal was to disappoint the senior and stop him from getting close to her. To achieve this, they decided to pretend to date in order to uncover what others disliked most about Lee Dam. The fox immediately started helping her analyze her wardrobe. She wore a dog-themed t-shirt, which he noted wasn't trendy but could still work. Lee Dam appreciated his input and then suggested a plan to make the senior bored and irritated. She remembered how, the last time, she ate black bean noodles with her mouth full, and it made others dislike her. The more Lee Dam listened, the more frustrated she became, but the fox continued eagerly. He even mentioned overhearing her dirty talk with friends on the phone. He suggested that if she spoke like that in front of the senior, it would save her half the effort. Lee Dam finally realized she didn't have to work so hard to impress the senior. Being herself was enough. Just as they were about to leave, the senior called again. The moment Lee Dam picked up, she noticed a lot of background noise. Moments later, the senior appeared behind her. The fox immediately pulled her back, making her heart race. She instinctively kept her distance from the fox, but the fox's gaze never left the senior. Seeing this, Lee Dam quickly introduced the fox as someone she had just met, trying to downplay their connection. The senior, unfazed, invited Lee Dam to a movie the next day. The fox wasn't pleased, but before leaving, the senior patted Lee Dam on the head and gave the fox a provocative look. Lee Dam felt miserable. The senior, born in the year of the tiger, was not intimidated by the fox's gaze, which seemed ready to devour him. The day of the movie arrived, but the weather wasn't favorable. After the film, it started to rain. The senior, who wanted to keep showing off, suddenly realized his younger brother had taken all his money. Embarrassed, he asked Lee Dam for help. She motioned for him to follow her, assuring him she would take him home. This gesture seemed to wipe away all the awkwardness from earlier. The senior, who had never taken a bus, now found himself riding one for the first time. After sending him off, Lee Dam couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Today, she had flaunted all her flaws, and she was certain the senior would dislike her now. Unexpectedly, what the senior thought was Lee Dam's unattractive appearance turned into something cute. The girl, who had lived 600 years ago, came to school for the first time but forgot to wear her uniform, and she became the center of attention. But the first thing she did when she got to school was try to be friends with Lee Dam. The girl greeted her warmly but kept staring at her, making Lee Dam feel uncomfortable. She didn't realize that, from a distance, another person was also staring at her, another fox, who lived with her. When he heard that his fox friend was coming to school, he agreed to help her settle in. But being a clever fox, he knew exactly what she was thinking. Today, Lee Dam had dressed carefully. She said she had plans for the evening and would come home late. Though she seemed calm on the outside, once Lee Dam left, the fox seemed to follow her thoughts. On the first day the fox girl came to school, the professor gave an assignment. Students were to team up and work on a love theme over the weekend, then write a report. When the team lists were posted, the boy noticed a name he didn't recognize. Was it a new student? He saw the fox girl happily greeting him. But when it was Lee Dam's turn, she was paired with the senior. She thought things were getting worse, but the senior was thrilled to see that they were in the same group. On the day of their date, Lee Dam suddenly felt sick. She checked her phone and realized it was the first day of her period. She told the fox she wasn't feeling well and would stay in her room to rest. The fox asked if she was sick, but Lee Dam didn't feel like explaining and went to her room. The fox spent the whole morning reading but kept looking at the clock. He couldn't wait anymore and ran to her room. He asked if she needed medicine. Seeing how weak Lee Dam was, he asked if she had a fever. Lee Dam looked at him and said, "Medicine won't help with periods." The fox quickly understood and said he would prepare some warm water for her, then ran off. He came back with a table of delicious food. After eating, Lee Dam felt better. While some symptoms could be treated, the cause still couldn't be fixed. When she woke up, it was already morning. She thought the discomfort would last for a few more days. Suddenly, she thought about getting through the day and dealing with the senior born in the year of the tiger. She worried it might be the end of her. But it was Sunday, and there was no choice. The love assignment still had to be finished. The fox asked Lee Dam where she was going, and she said she had to complete the assignment with the senior. Seeing her weak state, the fox couldn't bear to let her go. He called her back and said, "I have a way to help you without you going out." Lee Dam asked how that would work, and the fox turned into her appearance, telling her to stay at home and rest while he went in her place. He promised everything would be fine. What Lee Dam didn't know was that while the fox could copy her looks, he couldn't copy her attitude. When she showed up at the meeting spot, she felt something was off. Like most couples, the date began with eating, but the fox's overly polite behavior made the senior more confused. Even though the fox looked gentle and beautiful, something about her didn't seem quite right. The female fox, who was preparing to go to the movies to finish her assignment, suddenly saw Lee Dam and the senior at the cinema door. When Jae-jin saw Lee Dam, he got really excited. He rushed toward her like usual, but the female fox wasn't far away. As soon as she looked at them, she realized it wasn't Lee Dam. This was the first time this had happened to the fox, who had lived for 900 years. The fox's friend just watched quietly, enjoying the show. It was the first time the fox had picked up Lee Dam from school. He was careful, making sure to spread a cushion for her to sit on in case she got cold. Everything was ready, and they were just waiting. Soon, someone knocked on the car door. The fox thought it was Lee Dam, but it was his friend instead. Without any politeness, she got in and sat down. She even used the towel he had prepared, which made the fox's expression change. The fox girl realized that she wasn't the one he came to pick up, so she warned the fox, "If nine-tailed foxes like us are shaken, we'll never have peace. If we ruin important things because of personal feelings, we won't have time to regret it." At that moment, Lee Dam was walking toward the car. The fox told his friend to stop talking and get out. The female fox made an upset face and refused, but when she saw Lee Dam getting closer, she still stayed in disguise. When Lee Dam opened the door, the fox girl had vanished. The fox girl was still next to Lee Dam with makeup on. He took her to the hotel, but when he turned around, he saw Lee Dam outside, which embarrassed her. She didn't expect the fox to do that. But when Lee Dam, looking happy, got into the fox's car, her best friend, Jae-jin, was also there. He got upset. Even though Lee Dam tried to talk to him, he didn't care, and even called her immoral. He told her everything, from how she didn't care about her reputation to her past relationship, but she didn't see him as a real friend. After saying half of it, he left. He ignored her for several days. Lee Dam couldn't take it anymore and called Jae-jin to explain, but he hung up on her. She was so angry that she shouted, which startled the fox outside. A little later, he appeared in his true form. He asked Lee Dam if the jade fox inside her was bothering her. Lee Dam complained about it and asked him to find a way to get the jade fox out. The fox said he hadn't found a solution yet, but he was lying. He actually had a way, but wasn't saying anything at that moment. Meanwhile, Jae-jin was also upset. He overheard some classmates talking about how the senior had made a big mistake by bragging and betting against Lee Dam. They also said Lee Dam was easy to fool. Jae-jin couldn't take it anymore. He went to the senior and grabbed his shirt, asking if he had tricked Lee Dam into a bet. The senior admitted that he had. He wanted Jae-jin to keep it a secret from Lee Dam. Jae-jin replied, "I won't tell Lee Dam, but Lee Dam isn't deaf." After this big argument, It became clear that the senior truly cared for Lee Dam. He wanted to keep her, but Lee Dam told him to stop wasting his time and to consider it a joke. The senior apologized sincerely and hoped she wouldn't be angry. At that moment, two of Lee Dam's close friends came to find her, looking at the senior with hostility. They pulled Lee Dam away, but recently, there had been news about people disappearing. When they were found, their organs had been removed. The fox girl noticed something strange and immediately called the fox to tell him that these cases weren't caused by humans. The fox hung up the phone, feeling uneasy. That night, he was reading a book and forgot to close the curtains. He saw a cat outside staring at him. But when Lee Dam came back, she didn't have the habit of closing the curtains, and she didn't know she was being watched by the cat. The fox had a bad feeling. Just as the cat realized the danger and started to leave, it suddenly turned into a person. When the fox chased after it, the mysterious person was already gone. The fox remembered what the female fox had said about people disappearing and having their organs removed. She had believed it wasn't done by humans. The next day, Lee Dam went to school, and the fox girl stuck to her, even going to class with her. The fox girl couldn't take her eyes off Lee Dam. Lee Dam wasn't sure if the fox girl had taken the wrong medicine or if someone else had asked for her help. The fox girl, who had lived for 600 years, spoke up for the first time, deciding to protect Lee Dam. But her dedication was a little too much. Suddenly, a hand reached out for Lee Dam, and the fox girl grabbed it. Jin screamed in pain. Lee Dam felt more and more uneasy, but the strangest thing happened next. She went to the library alone to borrow books. When she turned around, she bumped into someone. The man picked up the book for her and then said, "Be careful." Those words made Lee Dam feel scared. Just then, the fox called from behind and asked what she was doing. Lee Dam said she had just bumped into someone, but when she looked again, the man had vanished. She didn't think much of it at the time, but they would meet again. Later, as Lee Dam passed a flower shop, she saw a girl inside. This reminded her of a portrait of a fox she had seen in a book. The fox admitted that the girl inside was his first love, even though it was someone from 500 years ago. Lee Dam felt a little jealous, but also worried when she saw someone who looked exactly like the person in the painting. The fox arrived soon after, and their eyes met with a spark of love. Lee Dam pulled her hand and said she wanted to go home, but the fox told her to go ahead and said he would follow. However, when Lee Dam reached the lake, the fox entered the flower shop. Inside, the fox saw through the disguise. The girl tried to hide her intentions, but it was clear she wanted to steal the jade fox. The girl disappeared as quickly as she had come, and the fox felt a premonition. He rushed home, nervously looking around, and pulled Lee Dam back. He didn't mention the flower shop but told her his first love was from the past. Now he just wanted to protect her. Lee Dam felt reassured but didn't know danger was still closing in. The fox picked Lee Dam up every day, but with exams coming up, Lee Dam had to focus on her studies and find documents. It seemed like someone was secretly targeting her. The fox, still worried, tried to find her. Then he received a phone call saying that before a captain died, he had seen the murderer's face, someone familiar. The fox looked through the car window. Could the murderer transform like him? At that moment, Lee Dam noticed that the fox had come to the library looking for her. Lee Dam was extremely happy and asked the fox why he came so urgently. He explained that he came to check on her and then glanced at her stomach. When he saw the red light, he smiled hungrily and reached out to touch her. Suddenly, books fell from a shelf, and when Lee Dam turned around, the fox had disappeared. She didn't know that the man she had just seen was actually an evil spirit disguised as the fox, taking advantage of the situation. The fox wasn't going to let this go. He grabbed the evil spirit by the neck, and in an instant, the spirit vanished. However, the fox was left shaken. The mountain god, who controls everything, had appeared. The mountain god reminded him not to become like the spirit and urged him to see Lee Dam as the last line of defense in his transformation into a human. The next day, the fox invited Lee Dam on a trip. She was curious because he had always refused to travel before. He told her he had made up his mind. Lee Dam was happy, unaware that the fox had another reason for the trip. On their journey, they took beautiful photos and visited a place full of wishes. Lee Dam made a wish, but soon she would find herself crying deeply. They continued their walk until evening, and the scene was quite romantic. Lee Dam suggested returning next year, but the fox hesitated for a moment before confessing the truth. He admitted he had tricked her from the start. He knew how to retrieve the pearl, but to become human, he needed her essence to nourish it. He had refrained from taking the pearl, but now he wanted to end it all. After she woke up, she would forget everything about this time. With that, he walked in front of her and took back his jade fox. Lee Dam, heartbroken, shed tears. When Lee Dam woke up, she returned to her old life. But on her way to school, a familiar image flashed in her mind. She cried bitterly, wondering why he had let her remember. At that moment, a senior approached and asked if she was okay. He offered to help and sit with her, and as he looked at her in pain, he felt a strange satisfaction, glad that Lee Dam no longer rejected him. But when the fox girl passed by, she saw Lee Dam too close to the senior and suspected something. Meanwhile, the fox was haunted by thoughts of Lee Dam. The female fox came to him, asking if he regretted his actions. She reminded him that if he intended to keep the jade fox inside her to nourish it, he shouldn't have gotten emotionally involved. The fox admitted that he had erased the memories related to himself from Lee Dam's mind, but the female fox suspected his magic was weakening. As they spoke, the sky suddenly began to rain. Lee Dam sighed, feeling unlucky, but just then, an umbrella appeared above her head. She turned around to see the fox standing there. He offered the umbrella, but Lee Dam refused, saying, "Why should I hold a stranger's umbrella?" His words made the fox's heart ache. He hadn't expected the news about the new professor, another fox, to spread so quickly. The professor's aura attracted many female students, but Lee Dam sensed danger in his arrival. Later, Lee Dam encountered him in an elevator, feeling uneasy but unable to avoid him. The atmosphere was tense, and just then, the senior asked her if she had chosen a date for their last dinner meeting. The fox didn't speak, but he overheard their conversation, waiting for Lee Dam's response. The senior asked Lee Dam if today was a good day. Just as the elevator vibrated, two people instinctively supported her. Lee Dam glanced at the fox, then pushed him away, thanking the senior instead, which made the fox feel uneasy. After getting out of the elevator, the senior followed Lee Dam, but she led him to a secluded spot and told him that the last dinner invitation wasn't from her. She suspected he had been part of the confusion. Meanwhile, the senior's younger sister had taken his phone and found out he had been texting Lee Dam. Playfully, the younger sister sent Lee Dam a message, arranging a dinner, with a playful note about refusing 100 times or 1,001 times being no different. Later, while Lee Dam was eating, she saw the message, and her younger brother commented, feeling happy to see someone interested in his older sister. On the other side, the senior was both excited and disappointed when he learned from Lee Dam that she already had someone she liked. His heart sank. Meanwhile, the fox overheard this and thought to himself, she already has someone she likes. During class, the senior watched Lee Dam closely, wondering who that person might be. Noticing Lee Dam's closeness to Jae-jin, he wondered if she liked him. To confirm, he showed his sister a photo of Jae-jin and asked who was more handsome. After she said Jae-jin was more handsome, the senior smiled smugly, thinking he was still attractive. Meanwhile, Lee Dam was out drinking with Jae-jin to ease her worries, but she didn't expect him to be so fragile. After a fall, Jae-jin ended up running wildly and crashing into a car. Lee Dam quickly helped him up, but as she did, a female fox got out of the car. Before Lee Dam could react, another person emerged, leaving her speechless. As Lee Dam helped Jae-jin, the fox attempted to step forward, but she pushed him away, insisting she could handle it herself. She apologized to the fox for the car damage and promised to pay for it. The next day, during a school picnic, the female fox sat next to Lee Dam, reminding her of the fox from the previous night. Lee Dam didn't feel anything was off, but when the senior prepared to confess to her, Jae-jin interrupted. The senior sarcastically asked Jae-jin why he was always so disruptive. Jae-jin, in turn, showed hostility toward the senior, and the two began arguing, which the female fox observed with sympathy for the fox. Later, the fox received a photo of the two men fighting. Staring at the photo, he decided to act. He recited a spell over the picture, and the next second, the girl appeared before him. But as he walked toward her, the fox suddenly held her face tightly and kissed her. Lee Dam instinctively responded, but as his eyes changed color, his movements grew more aggressive. Realizing something was wrong, Lee Dam immediately asked him to stop. The fox regained his composure and, looking at her, remembered the fox girl's warning when he was about to complete his transformation into a human. The fox craved something. Essence. It wasn't love he felt, but hunger. He sought the fox girl to learn how to control it. She told him it was simple, just avoid contact. The fox, however, was speechless. After all, it wasn't easy for him to bring her back. Less than a day passed before the situation repeated itself. When Lee Dam came home that evening, she was still blushing, thinking about the fox's kiss. She felt both excited and confused. The next day, the fox suddenly felt dizzy, his vision blurry. Not knowing what was wrong, he decided to rest. Meanwhile, Lee Dam arrived at class to find the professor was unwell, so she decided to check on the fox. The fox looked extremely pale when Lee Dam found him. She hurried over, concerned, but as she did, something in her eyes captivated him. A strong, uncontainable urge overtook him. He pulled her back, barely regaining his composure. He told her to leave. The fox girl, sensing the tension, quickly pulled Lee Dam away. Lee Dam, straightforward, said, "I know you. You're a fox too. You just wanted to know what's wrong with the fox." The fox girl explained that even if she explained, Lee Dam wouldn't understand. However, she made one thing clear. Lee Dam didn't understand their species. As Lee Dam passed by, the senior asked her if she was feeling all right. He noticed she'd lost weight in just a few days, but Lee Dam didn't find it odd, so she went to weigh herself. She was shocked to see she had lost 10 kilograms. She realized something was wrong. She was being drained of her essence. Remembering the fox's warning to keep a distance, she now understood. He had told her that after retrieving the jade fox essence, it still wasn't enough, and if they stayed close, he would drain her essence, putting her in danger. Lee Dam immediately called the fox, confirming that distance was necessary until a solution was found. Though saddened, the fox agreed. The next day, while heading to school, Lee Dam noticed a man following her. He handed her a lipstick she had dropped, explaining that he always watched her. The strange atmosphere made her uneasy, and soon she realized the man was also watching the fox. The fox felt a dangerous aura, and the man casually waved a red thread connecting them, saying, "This is what humans call fate." The fox grew angry, dismissing the man's words. As a mountain god, he didn't care for human fate, but before he could react, the man disappeared. Meanwhile, the senior found himself in trouble when his father confiscated his card. Desperate, he went to the milk tea shop owner for help, but the uncle seemed uninterested. However, when the uncle saw a customer eyeing the senior, he immediately offered to let him work at the shop. The senior, pampered all his life, was reluctant, but when the red string appeared, Lee Dam walked in to apply for the job. The senior, with a serious expression, insisted she must be hired. The experienced uncle understood immediately, but in the back of his mind, the fox worried. Was that red thread truly connected to fate? The female fox explained to the fox that the legend of the red thread bound men and women, no matter what, destined for love. She asked why he cared about the red string. He responded that he was only interested in cutting it. That evening, when the whole class went out to eat, the senior told Lee Dam with concern to drink less. This caused the girl next door to mistakenly think they were dating. Lee Dam repeatedly said that she had a boyfriend. The senior's heart felt heavy, suffocating, so he drank to forget his sadness. Despite drinking until his head hurt, when he saw Lee Dam preparing to leave, he still wanted to take care of her. But with his head pounding, he could hardly bear it. Lee Dam told him to take care of himself, but just as he was about to leave, a red thread tugged, making Lee Dam stop. She didn't know why, but she felt compelled to help him again. She asked if he needed her to call a taxi. The senior, though, instinctively leaned toward her. Lee Dam's heart skipped a beat, and at that moment, the fox, watching from a distance, saw what happened. Lee Dam quickly called for a taxi to help the senior, but as she did, the senior grabbed her hand, pulling her back. Just then, the fox appeared and pulled Lee Dam away, even kindly closing the door behind him. The fox grew more worried as he looked at the red thread connecting Lee Dam and the senior. Lee Dam could sense his concern and explained that the senior had just drunk too much, telling the fox not to worry. The fox reassured her, claiming he wasn't the jealous type. The next day, Lee Dam was focused on work. Meanwhile, the fox called, asking if she was tired. He offered to pick her up when she finished work. But when Lee Dam saw the senior, now a colleague, she quickly assured the fox that she could go home on her own. Just then, the senior spilled his drink, prompting Lee Dam to hang up the phone in a hurry. She checked on the senior, asking if he was okay, and the fox heard it clearly, which made him uneasy. After work, the senior called Lee Dam, offering to take her home. Lee Dam declined, but the senior insisted, claiming he had work-related questions for her. As they walked together, this scene caught the fox's eye from a distance, making him feel even more uncomfortable. Later that evening, when the fox tried to reach Lee Dam to discuss work, the power in her house went out. As she stepped forward, she tripped and accidentally fell into the fox, causing the pearl to fly out and land in her mouth. The fox was immediately stunned, unsure of what to do. Lee Dam, realizing the jade fox had swallowed it, thought there was nothing else she could do. The fox told her to close her eyes, giving her an excuse to retrieve the lost pearl. As he tried to get the pearl back, the closeness between them grew, and they both opened up to each other. Lee Dam reflected on the strange coincidence of fate that had brought her to work alongside the senior. The fox shared that the mountain god had tied the red thread between her and the senior. She could now see the thread and desperately wanted to cut it, but couldn't. She rushed to find scissors, but in her haste, she missed a step and fell hard to the ground. The fox, walking by, noticed Lee Dam's injury and rushed to help, but when he reached her, he froze. A man suddenly appeared and warned Lee Dam that if she played with the fate assigned to her, she should be prepared for serious consequences. Lee Dam asked if her future was already predetermined. The mountain god explained that while he couldn't predict everything, he could show her glimpses of what might happen in the future. Lee Dam closed her eyes and saw the sweet moments she could share with the senior. Meanwhile, the fox struggled to break free from the freeze and managed to help Lee Dam up. The mountain god reassured him, saying that it was just a dream Lee Dam was having, not reality. He reminded the fox that as an animal, he had no right to control his own fate. That evening, the fox, looking shy, clung to Lee Dam and confessed he was scared someone might steal her away. Lee Dam tried to reassure him, telling him not to worry, unaware that the fox was holding the red string that connected her to the senior. The red string, however, did have some magical properties. The next day, when Lee Dam finished school, she saw the fox waiting for her. Excited, she ran towards him but suddenly tripped over the red string. At that moment, the senior appeared and caught her. When Lee Dam saw him, the senior instinctively pulled back. She realized that the red string was causing this strange connection between them. The senior invited her to join him for a dinner party, but Lee Dam explained that she was already in someone else's car. When the senior asked whose car it was, the fox appeared and said, "It's my car." The senior, curious, asked why Lee Dam was in the professor's car. The fox struggled to explain, but Lee Dam quickly broke the awkward silence and said they were dating. The senior, clearly not happy, said it was fine for Lee Dam to date anyone but the fox. Lee Dam was confused by his words. Before she could ask further, the fox pulled her hand away. In class, the more Lee Dam thought about the situation, the more she felt something was off. Just then, the teacher came out of the fox's office, and the fox, seeing Lee Dam, froze, embarrassed. As the teacher approached, the fox suddenly pushed her hand away and did something unexpected, leaving Lee Dam in shock. She realized that the fox's eyes had changed color, and the teacher, behaving strangely, left the room as if possessed. Lee Dam, feeling a chill down her spine, began to suspect that her boyfriend wasn't human after all. She was horrified by his actions and pushed him away, deeply disappointed. News of the fox being intimate with the teacher spread quickly, and the female fox soon learned of it. Upon seeing Lee Dam's distress, she guessed what had happened. Though not wanting to get involved, she invited Lee Dam to eat with her and took her away. During their meal, the female fox spoke about helping the fox, not blaming him entirely. She explained that the fox had been practicing for hundreds of years and could easily do things that even gods and ghosts wouldn't know about. Though the fox didn't tell Lee Dam, the jade fox could absorb her essence, but he hadn't done so. However, recently, his jade had started turning green. Lee Dam, curious, asked why this was happening. The female fox revealed that when the red beads absorb human essence, they turn green, signaling the transformation into a human. Since meeting Lee Dam, the fox's jade had been changing color, only half green, indicating the fox's growing attachment to her. This was why the fox had acted impulsively. Lee Dam, understanding the fox's ability to turn human, quickly said she had something important to do: find the fox. The fox admitted his mistake, apologizing for disregarding her feelings and promised not to act impulsively again. Lee Dam, however, grabbed his hand, telling him to give her the pearl to raise. The fox immediately refused, saying he didn't want to hurt her essence. When Lee Dam questioned whether he looked down on her essence, the fox urged her to calm down. But to his surprise, Lee Dam jumped up and hugged his face, trying to suck the jade. The fox had no choice but to escape, using his vanishing technique to flee. Later, the fox, exhausted from using his powers multiple times, found himself struggling to keep up. As he passed by, the female fox spotted him, noticing the state he was in and his recent actions. Lee Dam couldn't help but care for the fox, unaware that his greatest tribulation was nearing. In an attempt to accelerate his transformation into a human, the fox girl approached Lee Dam. She asked if Lee Dam wanted to make the fox obey her. Curiosity sparked. Lee Dam was unsure how to achieve this. The fox girl's response was simple: "You must also become a fox." She explained that a fox's strength lay in setting traps. With that, Lee Dam sought Jae Jin's help to create one. "This is not just a game," he cautioned, wanting to see if the fox girl had ulterior motives. Mentioning the fox girl immediately softened Jae-jin's heart. Together, they put their plan into action, showing affection in front of others, which made the fox uncomfortable. The female fox, noticing their closeness, couldn't help but wonder, will their friendship cross the line? She didn't anticipate that the very trick she taught Lee Dam would be used on herself. She reassured herself that it wasn't worth worrying over, but couldn't shake the unease she felt at seeing the two together. Later that evening, Lee Dam noticed the pink silk in her hand was being pulled straight. She picked up a knife and cut a line through it. In that instant, she was transported into another realm. A man appeared, calling her brave for using such a method to summon him. Lee Dam, unafraid, remarked that she had someone she loved and questioned whether he had too much free time. The man, revealing himself as the mountain god, explained that this was all for the fox's benefit. He explained that the fox's jade turning green was not about essence, but human nature. The mountain god bound Lee Dam with a red string, allowing her to experience suffering, happiness, and hardships, the key elements needed for the fox's transformation into a human. Before Lee Dam could finish her thoughts, she was pulled back to reality. Now she understood that what the fox lacked was humanity. Determined to help, she plunged herself into research, finding documents to understand human nature. That evening, Lee Dam informed the fox that she had found a way to turn his jade green. The fox, concerned, reminded her to take care of herself and rest. Lee Dam reassured him and told him to cooperate with her. The following day, while driving, Lee Dam noticed a car speeding behind them. The fox slammed on the brakes and asked if she was okay. Lee Dam scolded him, telling him not to swear. The fox promised to work on it. Lee Dam, thinking about his personality, walked away, unaware that the fox had secretly thought, "It's over." She had made an appointment to meet the professor for her thesis. And at home, her best friend eagerly suggested they all go together. Lee Dam agreed, and the fox, unable to protest, reluctantly followed. Arriving at the professor's house, Lee Dam pretended to thank him but excused herself to the study. Jae-jin, confused, wondered where she was going. Realizing her slip-up, Lee Dam quickly corrected herself, explaining it was normal for people to have study rooms elsewhere. She even asked the fox if her guess was right, and he, impressed by her sharp observation, nodded. As they continued their search for documents, the fox felt pleased that things were going smoothly. But things took a turn when Lee Dam's best friend, unaware of the fox's true nature, called him a cunning creature without humanity. The fox, hearing this, struggled to suppress his anger. Suddenly, a hot pot exploded, and it was clear to everyone that the fox had lost control. Afterward, the fox, now holding Lee Dam's hand, pulled her into another car, sharing a private moment. The female fox, watching from afar, couldn't help but laugh. She understood the fox's predicament after nearly 999 years of living. Embarrassed, the fox protested, but Lee Dam, noticing his struggle, quickly suggested they head home. The two foxes teleported back smoothly. Once home, the fox began to question himself. Everything seemed fine, so why was he struggling? He tested his magic by making books fly into his hands, but something felt off. He tried moving a flower pot, but it only budged slightly before freezing. The female fox, sensing his distress, approached him and learned that the fox's jade had turned 2/3 green. This marked a significant step toward his transformation into a human. The fox girl remembered how she had lost her magic, only for it to return after she was arrested for illegally entering a country. It was then, once her magic had stabilized, that she became human. Now, as the fox faced a similar fate, it seemed he too was nearing the end of his transformation. But at what cost? That night, the fox, full of excitement, wanted to share the good news with Lee Dam. But when Lee Dam caught sight of her reflection, she noticed her hands starting to turn transparent. Her heart sank. Could this be the end of the fox's transformation? Rushing to him, she embraced the fox, but he didn't respond. His mind was too preoccupied with the uncertainty of his fate. Later, the fox voiced his concerns about becoming cold, hinting that he was nearing the end of his transformation. He crawled into Lee Dam's bed, pretending to seek her comfort. Lee Dam, recognizing his tricks, steeled herself for whatever he had planned, but before she could react, he pulled her into his arms. The next day, the fox suggested they skip school and have some fun. Lee Dam agreed, and they spent the day taking beautiful photos and playing games. But while walking through a lantern house, Lee Dam tripped, and the fox, in an instant, appeared on the main road to pull her back. Glancing at his hands, he saw them turning transparent. His jade fox charm had shattered, confirming that time was running out. Lee Dam, still unaware of the turmoil the fox was going through, wondered where he had gone. Suddenly, she was pulled into his embrace, and she angrily confronted him about disappearing without a word. The fall had caused her pain, but the fox stayed silent, unable to share the truth. Later, Lee Dam's mother mentioned she would be staying home for a few days. This left the fox wondering if he would ever see Lee Dam again. Stricken with a sense of loss, he sought out the fox girl, thanking her for always helping him, even though he hadn't yet transformed into a human. But the fox girl, reluctant to hear his farewell, stopped him mid-sentence. She wasn't ready to accept it. The fox then asked for one last favor, something only she could do. After returning home, the exhausted fox sat down, tears streaming down his face. He wasn't afraid of disappearing. He simply couldn't bear the thought of leaving Lee Dam. For the first time in over 900 years, he cried. As Lee Dam reflected on everything, she noticed the photo of her and the fox slowly disappearing. Panic set in as she raced to the fox's house, desperately calling his name, trying to figure out what was happening at the end of their journey together. The fox knew he couldn't hide the truth any longer, but Lee Dam was too preoccupied to notice the car rushing toward her. When she finally realized, her body froze. Before she could react, she was pushed aside. When she looked up, she saw the fox lying on the ground, having been hit by the car. His eyes met hers, but he had no strength left, only tears that fell helplessly as he collapsed. Lee Dam rushed to his side, but the fox's eyes remained closed. His body was fading. She touched the last warmth of his body and cried bitterly. Her emotions overwhelmed her as she gazed at the unfinished will he left behind. She looked at the photo of the two of them on her phone, and suddenly, she saw his image reappear. Could it be that the fox still existed in some form? Determined, she waited for him at his house, just as she had before. Days passed, but the fox still hadn't returned. One day, a female fox visited Lee Dam, saying the fox had made a request. He had known he was about to disappear and had asked the fox girl to erase Lee Dam's memories if she suffered from the pain. He wanted her to forget him and live her life, but Lee Dam, tears in her eyes, refused to let go. Even if it meant carrying the sadness, she couldn't forget the fox. Meanwhile, in another time and space, the fox seemed to hear Lee Dam's cries, shedding his own tears. One day, Lee Dam woke up, feeling as if someone were watching her. The fox girl, sensing her emotion, was overwhelmed as she saw Lee Dam sobbing. Both of them had waited for this moment for so long, enduring countless hardships. At last, they were reunited. They dressed in black and held hands, ready to take the next step together. But as they approached, they were taken aback by the crowd gathered. Lee Dam asked the fox to use his magic to get past them and obtain their certificate. But the fox reminded her that as a human, he could no longer perform magic. Lee Dam reassured him that even if her mother criticized them, it would be fine. It turned out that Lee Dam's mother had visited the fox previously, and they had been caught. Lee Dam felt embarrassed, but her mother, a gangster at heart, couldn't lie about it. So, Lee Dam asked the fox to erase her memory. The fox tried, but her mother's will was too strong. To Lee Dam's surprise, her mother wasn't angry. In fact, she praised them for being honest, which left Lee Dam feeling relieved. As her mother left, she whispered that she hoped Lee Dam would try her best and expressed approval of her son-in-law. Lee Dam then asked the fox if he wanted to greet his mother-in-law, but the fox declined, saying he had important work to do at home. Despite the challenges, the two of them overcame everything and lived happily ever after. And that, my boys and girls, is the end of the story. Don't forget to subscribe.